The topic is communication among different national users of the database. I already touched upon this, and then somebody already commented on this, but after this webinar, we will share with all the participants that who participated in this webinar, so that you may be able that who from your country have participated in this webinar, and then who are the focal points or members of our different three databases communities, and then you will see that what kind of agencies are involved in this topic of biosafety, and then we hope that this is one way to improve the communication among different stakeholders, national users of our databases. So now that I would like to invite once again Pablo from European Commission to comment on how EU is setting the communication mechanism informally or formally in terms of exchanging the information and then communicating among different national users of the databases. Pablo, can you comment on this?
Yeah, thanks, Masami. Wow. In fact, in the European Union, there is no specific mechanism for internal communication or cooperation between the EU focal points or of the three databases, but it is done when necessary, and it is done, of course. And also, the EU member states upload their own information, in particular to the BCH, because as Bertrand said before, in the OECD, for example, the EU is referred as a whole, but not, for example, in the BCH. This is one topic. There's no mechanism for coordination, but of course we coordinate a lot, but when necessary. Other point I want to raise is the EU hosts and updates on a regular basis different official databases are registered in the EU, located in the Commission website, GRC, EFSA, and so on. And this is also coordination. For example, in this webinar, we are different officials from the Commission, the GRC, the EFSA, and we are all together working in the same direction. Well, this is only what I wanted to say. Masami, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pablo. I think it could be a great information for countries to learn how other countries are doing in terms of the communication. So here that I would like to ask Andre from Argentina, can you share with us that if you have any communication mechanisms in terms of the biosafety related information?
Okay, you have an area for specific international uses. I direct the information to this referent. She's the one who distributes and allocated items from works in the biotechnology area or biosafety items. She is point for distribute the information in the different uses.
Okay, thank you, Andre. How about Thelma from the Philippines? Can you share with us the communication mechanism among the your country?
Yes, I think the focal points of the databases for each country should coordinate with each other to further streamline the update and uploading of information. And also, furthermore, the focal point must also call the attention of relevant government agencies to facilitate easier uploading of records, perhaps conduct capacity building activities or information, education and communication programs, for the relevant agencies for them to be informed. Or be familiar with
Thank
the
you very much.
databases. Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much, Elma. Here, that I would like to invite all the participants to chat the Skype. If you have any specific education mechanism, for example, if your country is a biosafety or you meet regularly to exchange information about biosafety, then I would really like to learn from your country experiences. So any of the participants have kind of system, then please share it with us in the chat box. Meanwhile, Kazu, are you still online from Japan? That if you have any communication mechanism in Japan.
Okay, do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we
Do you hear me?
Kazu, yes, we do.
Oh. No? Ah, okay, thank you. As for the information sharing mechanism, in Japan we have a meeting between the ministries relating to the biosafety issue. We meet regularly. We meet on a regular basis. But intersectional. I mean, the among the different ministries on safety and biosafety issue, we don't have a specific mechanism to share information. So, in that sense, as you mentioned earlier, providing the list of participants in this webinar or in the meeting is really helpful to understand who is in charge of food safety issue or who is involved in the biosafety issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kazu, to share the Japanese situation. Yes, that your point that sometimes countries have issue of communicating among different ministries and agencies, and then biosafety is such a cross-cutting issue. Then we sometimes have to have somebody from safety and somebody from environment and somebody completely different trade issue or intellectual the property right that so and then all different areas people in the government has to collaborate together, so sometimes this poses some challenges. Peter, I would like to go back to you, that if you have experience in terms of hearing some sort of related communication issues from your members in the past, if could you share with us if you have heard any good practices in terms of communication?
Okay, Masami, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Of course, yeah, it's difficult to answer this question without giving particular examples, which I'm not completely sure I wish to do. But in our experience, I guess, countries vary in the local arrangements that they have, in the number of ministries that are involved, and the types of ministries. But I would say that those countries that have had quite a long experience of working particularly with commercial applications and approving commercial applications of LMOs probably have learned a lot from that experience, and they function quite well. I guess it comes with having to deal on a practical basis with those types of issues. Experiences vary, but as I say, with some experience and practice, it works well.
Great. Thank you so much, Peter. Now I'm seeing some comments that from Mohammed Elias. He is writing that in Tunisia, we have a national biosafety committee where representatives from agriculture and industry are present. However, I think that one should establish contacts with FAO focal points and OECD contacts to complete the scope and to harmonize biosafety activities. So thank you so much for this comment. I think that is a very good point. And then also, Alexis, in Serbia, we now have agriculture and environment under the same roof, same ministry. We will see how it will improve communication. Yes, thank you so much for this information. And then this is a very interesting trend. I see in some countries are putting agriculture and environment together, and then yes, let's see how this would work. But then hopefully this is really a good move in terms of biosafety. Also, I would like to ask Giovanni that if he has heard any kind of good practices at the national level, the communication mechanism. Could you share with us, Giovanni, if you have?
Sure. You may all know that under the Cartagena Protocol there has been a large investment from the GEF to support capacity building in developing countries for the development of national biosafety framework. This, of course, is not limited to the Cartagena Protocol. I mean, the national biosafety framework of each country is dealing with all the biosafety issues, including the obligation under the international treaty. But basically, the main scope is the one to create a legal framework and an administrative framework, as well as a scientific technical support, through which countries may address the issue of the safe use of biotechnology. Now, under many of this national framework, there have been the institution of National Biosafety Committee that are basically very often a meeting point from all the different ministries and sometimes also civil society stakeholders, where discussion goes on in terms of use of biotechnology, how to address decision, how to address the safe use of biotech product. So I think that in many countries we are seeing the National Biosafety Committee or sometimes the General Institutional Authority, Biosafety Authority, that are just a gathering of the different ministries, or sometimes one ministry that is taking the lead over a group of others. I mean, there are very different type of solution in different type of national framework, but in all of them there is the clear scope to place around the same table all the institutional bodies, as well as part of the civil society, because the Cartagena Protocol has an obligation to involve the public into the decision on biotech. And in this sort of national gathering, national arena, there is a lot of communication. The problem is not often in terms of sharing the information. At least from our experience, very often the information at national level is quite well shared, at least in the governmental institution. What we see is that then when countries' representatives goes to different type of international meeting, they have a very specific view on what each intergovernmental organization has to do, and sometimes, I mean, the mandate or the requests are not going exactly in the same line, or at least are not asking exactly the same thing. This is why sometimes we have overlapping, and we have a situation where it sounds difficult to create harmonization. But this is not, I will say, this is much more often happening at international level than at national level. At national level, I think that at least in terms of information, there is a good level of sharing in all the countries where a framework are being or have been developed. Of course, there is not always a share of views or opinion, because of opinion on this subject are always is very deep, and this different arena, different table of biosafety committee or biosafety agencies are the place where this discussion happens. Then, of course, this is part of the democratic process in each country. Thank you, Masami.
Thank you so much, Giovanni, for sharing that information. I think that is very good information to have. I have Heidi from Australia that in a comment her organization OGTR uploads environmental approval to the BCH and OECD databases, and Food Standards Australia New Zealand uploads information to FAO and OECD databases. We have mandatory consultation with the relevant ministries in our legislation, which means that we maintain regular dialogue with other regulators and ministries. Thank you so much. So it seems like a very much clear roles and responsibilities are set, and then still maintain the good level of both informal and formal communication among the regulators and the ministries. So that is a very good practice. Also, Julia from Kenya. In Kenya, we have the National Biosafety Authority, which is the focal point and works closely with other regulatory agencies in environment, wildlife, plant health, and public health and veterinary services. So it seems like that this is the authority really have the different expertise, and then also the officers working in different areas, but then somehow cross-cutting in this biosafety area. So in this way that I suppose that she means that they maintain the communication level quite straight. So thank you for sharing this information. And then I think that I can now conclude somehow this discussion topic number 2 on communication. I think that we all agree that this is the important topic, and then there is a huge importance in coordination of the work, and then also the communicating and sharing the information at the national level. And then also this is the same can be said at the international level, like we are doing. I see some comments saying that there are some other databases in the world that collect global information about biosafety, and then perhaps that is another way of communication at the international level that we may have to strengthen. But then in any case, that the communication and then talking, having a dialogue is very important in this area due to the nature of this multi-sectoral work and topics. And then we have heard some challenges mentioned, for example, that a totally different mandate and then also different ministries, it is very difficult to communicate, at least at the regular basis. But then we heard that some people find a way to maintain the informal communication together, or create some sort of cross-cutting committee so that some level of communications are maintained. And then we have seen and then also heard some best practices and how the communication is maintained at the national level. So I think that we can get a lot of good examples from this discussion. So I think that with that we can close this topic 2 on the discussion session, and then